Hey all, it's your boy Cryptic, and today we've got another episode of Buy, Wait or Never, and that's for Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales Ultimate Edition review. I was contemplating whether to do this as the Ultimate Edition or the normal edition, but between the two that are actually worth getting, the Ultimate Edition, although expensive, is the only one that's worth considering between the two, unless you only have the PlayStation 4 at the moment and you want to get Miles Morales, then maybe, but this is mostly reviewed on the Ultimate Edition. Now, with that said, I did realize with the first episode of Buy, Wait or Never on the PlayStation 5, it was a bit rushed. I'm still working on timings on videos on how long I should be or shouldn't be going, so hopefully there's more improvement in this video and it's more towards a sweet spot of not too long but also not rushing over important factors and not lingering over less important factors. So with that all out of the way, let's get into the review. Also, there will be little to no spoilers in this review for those who are still playing or haven't played the game that are watching the video. I don't like being spoiled watching reviews, so I'm sort of taking that into consideration, that if I wouldn't like it, I'm sure many others wouldn't either. So generic gameplay is going to be playing of the game in the background, not really many story elements that technically haven't been already shown in the marketing materials, so I'll be avoiding any real spoilers in the editing here. So without any further ado, let's get into it, guys. Let's start off with the visuals of the game. Now, as you know, with the PlayStation 5, it's more or less true 4K with most games, and that's no different here with Miles Morales. Visually stunning, texture-wise, gorgeous, lots of detail in the world, great lighting, ray tracing, wow. The biggest takeaway here from the game when it comes to the visuals is the ray tracing. When going up buildings or near buildings with shiny surfaces, mirrors, windows, etc., being able to see reflections of the buildings around you, the NPCs around you, yourself, all in real time in high quality resolution is amazing. I know normally it wouldn't be considered as something that's like, ooh la, like this is, you know, meant to be this big deal, but I guess it's a small thing that adds to the bigger picture and to the immersion of the universe in the game that you're in. It also helps gameplay a lot, which I'll get into the gameplay section of the review, but just visually speaking, it just livens up the whole world while making it more realistic, more believable. Ray tracing's done amazing things for this game, and you'll see when you also have the remastered edition and the Ultimate Edition of the original Marvel Spider-Man by Insomniac. It's like the game itself looked amazing to begin with. How could you improve it? And it really does take it to a whole new level. Ray tracing is implemented very tastefully in this game and done right. It's not just thrown in as like this gimmick benchmarking sort of technique where it just chugs the frame rate like crazy and makes things so unstable. It is fantastic in the way it's implemented. Also, if you're not into the whole ray tracing thing, you can go from 30 FPS to 60 FPS, which removes the ray tracing, has slightly lower res textures, not by much, has more global illumination, etc. on the world, and does target a butter smooth 60 FPS. And I can tell you right now, swinging through New York at 60 FPS looks fantastic. It feels great. Yeah, so if you go into settings and then you can go into visuals, there's a fidelity mode or a FPS mode, and you can toggle between the two at any time. When you do, it will load you back to the last checkpoint you were at, so make sure you're not doing anything substantial like a side mission or a main story. Decide after or before entering that event in order to switch between fidelity or 60 FPS, and then you won't be sort of having to backtrack anything that you've already completed, or through a sequence of combat or story that was a bit difficult for you that now you have to repeat all over again, because it does have to load you from some sort of point to apply the changes. So usually it's the last save point or your last checkpoint. Yeah, that was with the visuals. As I said, great draw distance, great textures, 30 FPS with ray tracing or 60 FPS with butter smooth frame rates and animations. Absolutely fantastic. Next part I'll talk to you guys about is the audio. Now, audio is great. It's taken things to a step further with the 3D audio engine in the PlayStation 5 that Sony's implemented, which is available with any headphones that you plug in. Now I'm still playing the game with my Audio Technica headphones. They've been serving me well until December 3rd, till the Pulse 3D audio headsets come in, along with the charging station that we're still waiting for. But audio 3D sounds amazing. Hearing the honks of the vehicles, vehicles coming in and out, NPCs yelling, sirens from fire trucks and police vehicles, all coming from so many different directions around you, full 360 degrees, really makes you feel like you're within New York, in that New York, and just soaking up the atmosphere, the sound, the people, everything. It's quite amazing. It's really hard to explain until you do it for yourself, but if for whatever reason you prefer playing on your sound system with surround sound or 2.1 audio, 2.0, whatever it may be, or even the TV speakers, the quality of audio that comes from the game is really good. It takes a more hip-hoppy vibe to the music, to the soundtrack, to fit sort of the Miles Morales character, who is Spider-Man this time as opposed to Peter Parker. Great bass, great kicks in the music. The NPCs and characters that you meet throughout the game, the story, the world, have great clarity in speaking, great audio, great scripts. Audio all around is fantastic. Not really much to say there other than everything has a good punch, kick to it, good weight in sound. Vocals are fantastic. The sound effects are amazing, especially when you're doing your bioelectricity abilities and really hearing that big slow down thump as you finish someone in midair or into the ground or into a wall. The sound effects are phenomenal. They've really stepped it up, which is quite surprising considering the small turnaround time they had from Spider-Man to Spider-Man Miles Morales. There wasn't that huge amount of time, but them being able, I guess, to work off the dev kit to the PS5 really took things to the next level. Now the gameplay. Gameplay is more or less the same as Marvel's Spider-Man 2018, except with new abilities. Miles now has the ability to turn invisible, has the bioelectricity abilities, and has a few different gadgets to use and finishing moves, etc. Not to the same degree as Peter's Spider-Man, but they are different. He still has his webs, able to swing, able to shoot webs at enemies, and if you get them to the ground or close enough to the wall and hit them with enough web shots, they will get, that'll be a takedown, they'll be immobilized. And yeah, though with his finishes, they're sort of, triangle and circle pressed together to do a finishing move, and there's various animations for that. Really well done. They don't feel too repetitive, they don't feel, out of place or anything like that. They do fit the tone, especially with the character and the way Miles does fight very differently to Peter. When he swings them throughout the world, he's very more acrobatic than Peter is. I guess that's the difference, where they're showing you that Miles is still learning the ropes of being Spider-Man compared to Peter, who's been doing it for years and has all that experience, where he's still, young, he's still going through school, he's still, trying to work out how the world works, and he's been put in the middle of being Spider-Man now, which is great. The game itself, if you were doing just beelining the main mission, it's I'd say between 10 to 20 hours, depending on how long you take, how hard you set the difficulty and that sort of thing. It's definitely shorter than Spider-Man, but it is substantial in the sense that if you were to do all the side quests, the collectibles, all the bits and bobs, you will get a significant game out of this. I would say 30 to 40 hours to do everything, and for the value of also getting Marvel Spider-Man remastered with it, it's pretty good value. They've also gotten rid of a lot of the repetitive missions. So where in Marvel Spider-Man you had to do the same type of mission with the exact same activity over and over to get tokens, to unlock suits, to unlock gadgets, to upgrade abilities, etc., and upgrade the gadgets. It's a lot more varied. You still get, instead of finding the bags, you've got tech parts that you go around the whole city finding. You've also got other collectibles that are in there that I won't spoil yet because they're sort of story integrated, which leads into a revelation or a reveal later on. So don't want to get into those too deeply to spoil things for you guys. But yeah, they've got various collectibles, various activities. The Spidey app sort of comes back in a way. It's a bit more fleshed out. It's a bit, well, not a bit, a lot better. Crimes that are happening, instead of just waiting for them to randomly happen in the world and then go to them, and hopefully it's one that you haven't completed 100% before and gotten all the crime tokens for, they're now been switched to activity tokens. So not so many different type of tokens to do the same thing, but more or less the same amount. Activity tokens to do them. You can replay them from your phone. So you swipe left on the touchpad on the DualSense, and that'll open up the Spidey app. And then from there you can switch between requests. So people who've sent you requests through the app, hey, can you help me out with this, or do this, or hey, there's this big convoluted side story, and it leads into some crazy stuff where you find Spider-Cat, or taking down people who are stealing toys, or whatever it may be. All that sort of stuff will be in the activities tab, and then you can hit go to the right, and then there'll be the crimes, and you can go through them to see which ones you've completed 100% and which ones you still need to complete a skill or a sub-objective in there to get the remaining activity tokens that you're missing to 100% that activity, which is fantastic because you can keep track of things, do things at your own pace. You don't feel like you're rushed. You can do story when you want, you can do side activity when you want, you can do collectibles where you want. The game's quite flexible. There's no rush to, do the next thing or the other thing. Play at your own leisure however you want. It's really good in that sense. Enemy AI is pretty good. They do pose a challenge, especially on the higher difficulties, but since you do have your Spidey senses, if you're just paying attention or enough attention, you can dodge most attacks without getting hit. But combat feels so fluid, so good. Even at 30 FPS with the ray tracing on, it is so smooth. I think that would lead mostly to the fact that the frame rate is so stable as opposed to the PlayStation 4. Especially when Spider-Man came out, God of War came out, it was really pushing the hardware to 100%. While you're playing Spider-Man, also to know, the PS5 is super quiet. You do not hear a peep out of it. You do not hear a sound out of it. Not even the fans, not even the Blu-ray drive spinning up the disc. Nothing. It is dead quiet. It is fantastic. Just lets you immerse everything that the game has. So yeah, haptic feedback with the controller does implement a little bit, not a great deal, but enough to make it immersive. So with the triggers, when you are webbing across or wanting to zip line from one building to another, or just swinging around the city, you do feel tension in the R2 button, which you use for swinging. As you press it, there is that tension where it's like, resisting you as Miles is swinging through the city and sort of grabbing objects to pull them or to activate them using the webs. It is really good, especially when, as you're swinging, you feel vibrations on the right-hand side of the controller and the left-hand side, depending if you're shooting a web from the left hand or the right hand as you're swinging through the city. And if you're, coming really close to like a building as you're swinging through, you feel a wind rush animation, like the wind or the breeze is blowing past Spider-Man, and then you can sort of feel that vibration in the left-hand side or right-hand side, depending which direction it's coming from. So they have done it really tastefully. It's not just random vibrations or the lack of anything. They've actually done something that makes sense with it, which hopefully we see a lot more in third-party games as well. I don't know if it'll be in something like the Cyberpunk coming out, in a few weeks, but that's neither here or there. That's probably be a different set of videos altogether, but it'll be nice to see that sort of implementation of the controller in other games. But so far it's been pretty good with all the first party titles and whatever third party titles that have come out on the PS5 at the moment. Story is, well, if you've watched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, know anything about Miles Morales, or even played the last video game, Marvel's Spider-Man, the story will seem a bit cliched. It's the superhero trope. There's a baddie or set of baddies, and you have to take them down, and there's someone that you thought you trusted, and turned out they're not who they are now as they were when you knew them, blah blah blah. It's all those sort of cliches, the real superhero tropes playing through. Even though that is the case, and it can at times be very predictable about who you think the mystery villain is, and it's like you kind of see it a mile away, just because if you've watched enough Marvel movies, superhero movies, played enough superhero games, it's sort of second nature. You pick up on them. But in saying that, it doesn't mean that the story itself is terrible. It is quite good. It makes you really care about the characters, the main side characters and other NPCs that you help and meet throughout the world of New York, with Miles' New York. It is really entertaining. It grips you. You want to know what happens next, even though you could probably guess what's going to happen next. You're really anxious to see it play out. You get really attached to certain characters, and if you get worried if something was to happen to them, or they would be killed off or whatever. You've got that real care factor, so it does a really good job in that department. Even though you could sort of see things happening or people being a certain way from a distance, you could see it coming. It still pulls off that. It makes you care, which is rare in video games. They either nail it or they don't, and that the story's like, I don't care for any of these people. Why are you pretending that I do now all of a sudden? This is sort of like you do. You really do care about these people, and because of that, the story overall is quite entertaining, quite fun. Especially for the shorter game that it is, the story is quite perfect, considering it's that sort of Batman trope where it's Christmas Eve and all this crap is going down now, and you have to save the city. It's like, hey, let's save Gotham again. But it is fun. It's great seeing all the snow particles happening, especially when the snow picks up when it's really cold in that part of the story, and sort of day cycle in the game, and just the storm picks up and there's this layers of snow everywhere, and just the animations and everything is just, it is really great. Fantastic game. So with that said, is this something that's worth picking up now, waiting for a sale, or just never touching? Honestly, I would say it's definitely worth picking up now. Definitely buy it. Even on the PlayStation 4, I say get it. It's a lot cheaper on the PlayStation 4. Here in Australia, I think it's about $100 for the Ultimate Edition, which, 100 Australian. I know Americans are complaining about, $70 games worth $30 more at the moment. Usually you'll see like here EB Games will be launching a game for that much, or $110 for the Ultimate Edition, or $120, and then you'll get like an $80 or $90 at JB Hi-Fi. But right now JB is not doing that. I guess they're still feeling the water. They're quite new. They can't seem to get the the bulk buy discounts of certain games like they normally do yet, because demand is so high for the new the new gen consoles, and they're completely sold out. So maybe in time we'll see some more discounts here. If the price drops on day of release, you'll get your sort of $10 $5 refund, whatever the difference is. But at the moment it is $100, but getting 2 whole games out of it. If you haven't played Marvel Spider-Man, which I don't know if that would be many people, I'd say definitely get the Ultimate Edition on the PlayStation 5. Otherwise, get Miles on the PlayStation 4 if you don't have the PlayStation 5. And if you have played it, I'd say it's still worth a while to jump into Marvel Spider-Man Remastered. It is, with the visual upgrades, the ray tracing, the better loading times, all that. I'd say it's still worth it. Still worth a try, especially since you can upload your save file from the original PS4 game and transfer it to the remastered. That is something that I'll probably link in the description box below, because it's not as easy as just copying your save file from the PS4 to the PS5 by USB or using the PlayStation Cloud. There is a process you got to do by inserting the original PS4 disc into the PS5, but I'll leave a step-by-step tutorial in using a link in the description box below, which will make it easier for everyone. But it's definitely a buy. I wouldn't wait on it. I'd say it's definitely worth the money as it is now. So yeah, guys, that's my review of Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales Ultimate Edition. If you guys are playing it, let me know what you think below. Did you find the Story a bit cliche and a bit predictable. Did you enjoy the combat? Didn't you? So yeah, let's have a discussion about it. Until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya.